Once upon a time, there was a king with 4 sons, and one very important lesson to teach them. Many years had passed, and the 3 elder brothers had already left the nest, but the youngest stayed behind. He had a kind heart and was a hard worker, always lending a helping hand to those in need, but he was also naive and quick to judge. One day the king called his youngest son to him and said, "My son, do you know what the most important thing in life is?" The young man pondered for a moment. "Is it wealth, power, wisdom?" The king smiled and said, "You are so eager to judge everything, but sometimes it's best just to observe and listen. Go to the garden and sit under that old pear tree. Come back and tell me what you see." The young man went to the garden and sat under the pear tree. He looked around and thought, "There is nothing to see here. This tree has no leaves. It is dry and dead." He walked back to the palace and told his father, "Father, I went to the garden and sat under the old pear tree, but it appears to be dead. There is nothing to report." The king nodded, but he knew his son had judged the tree too quickly. So he decided to send his other sons to see the tree as well, but at different times of the year. He called his eldest son, who had a merchant's mind. "I want you to go to the garden and sit under that old pear tree. Come back and tell me what you see." The eldest son went to the garden, sat under the tree, and looked around. He noticed new buds on the branches. The tree was covered in fresh green leaves. Birds were singing in its branches. There was life everywhere. He returned to the palace and said, "Father, I went to the garden and sat under that old pear tree. It is full of life. The tree is green and full of potential. It will bear much fruit in the future." The king nodded, but he knew his eldest son had come in the spring and had seen only one season of the tree. He called his second son, who had a scholar's mind. "I want you to go to the garden and sit under that old pear tree. Come back and tell me what you see." The second son went to the garden, sat under the tree, and closed his eyes. He smelled the sweet fragrance of the blooming pear blossoms. Colorful butterflies fluttered around him. He could hear the buzzing of bees collecting pollen. He opened his eyes and saw beauty all around. He returned to the palace and said, "Father, I went to the garden and sat under that old pear tree. It is beautiful. The tree is surrounded by blooming flowers and buzzing with life." The king nodded, but he knew his second son had come in the summer and had seen only one season of the tree. He called his third son, who had an artist's mind. "I want you to go to the garden and sit under that old pear tree. Come back and tell me what you see." The third son went to the garden, sat under the tree, and looked around. He saw ripe pears hanging from the branches. The tree was laden with fruit. He picked up a pear, took a bite, and savored the sweet, juicy flavor. He returned to the palace and said, "Father, I went to the garden and sat under that old pear tree. It is fruitful. The tree is giving plenty of food for all to eat." The king nodded, but he knew his third son had come in the autumn and had seen only one season of the tree. Finally, he called his youngest son again. "I want you to go to the garden and sit under that old pear tree. Come back and tell me what you see." The youngest son went to the garden, sat under the tree, and looked around. He noticed the leaves had turned brown and had fallen to the ground. The tree was bare and lifeless. Nothing was to be seen. He returned to the palace and said, "Father, I went to the garden and sat under that old pear tree. It is dead. There is nothing to report." The 4 princes gathered together and began to argue. The eldest said, "You are wrong. I saw the tree in the spring and it is full of life." The second said, "You are wrong. I saw the tree in the summer and it is beautiful and full of flowers." The third said, "You are wrong. I saw the tree in the autumn and it was fruitful and gave plenty of food." The youngest said, "You are wrong. I saw the tree in the winter and it is dead." The king listened to their argument, and when they were quiet, he said, "My sons, you are not wrong. You are all right. You each saw the tree in a different season, and each season has its own beauty. but those who fail to see all seasons will get a wrong perspective of life. The eldest son said, "But I saw the tree in its youth, full of energy and potential." The king said, "That is true, but potential without growth is pointless. The tree needed to bloom and bear fruit." The second son said, "But I saw the tree in its glory, full of beauty and fragrance." The king said, "That is true, but beauty without purpose is meaningless. The tree had to bear fruit to fulfill its purpose." The third son said, "But I saw the tree in its maturity, full of fruit and ready to provide." The king said, "That is true, but provision without preservation is temporary. The tree had to shed its leaves and rest to preserve its strength." The youngest son said, "But I saw the tree in its old age, bare and lifeless." The king said, "That is true, but rest without renewal is pointless. The tree had to go through the winter to be reborn in the spring." The king then said to all his sons, "Do not judge someone by just one season of their life. Everyone is like that old pear tree. Everyone goes through different seasons of life. Wait, observe and understand. One day you will be the king, and these people will come to you for advice. If you judge them by only one season, you will make a big mistake. So remember, everyone has their winter. Don't judge them before their spring."